everybody, welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible season.
This is for the win between these two. I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakely will dive to the inside.
We were robust, we got our elbows out.
Ronard takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Jarno Watmere is your champion.
And it looks like I did have the wrong cam, but here we are. Welcome everyone and a very good evening to this PSGL PC social race. This is the third set of races tonight. We are in Austria. We already had a race starting about an hour ago, and this will be our second event. I'll be a host for tonight. My name is Sky, and joining me in the comms box is Harry. Welcome.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. Hopefully it'll be a great race. I mean, usually I've got PSF2 on Monday, so I don't know half these drivers. So as well, do bear in mind if I butcher those pronunciations, but how are you today? Lovely.
The funny thing is, it should work, and it works now. It's just an OBS bug. I switched to my overlay and it decided not to work, so that is lovely. But it is not a PSGL stream for me without any issues with OBS, so welcome back, I guess that is to me. Anyways, once more, welcome to this PSGL stream. We are on for another social race, the third set of games and races. We have a stack grid with 21 drivers, and we're at the second race here tonight in Austria. The second set of races for PC, and the third one's in total. And as I mentioned, I will be commentating this with Harry. Harry, you've heard already, and now you've heard me as well. Once more, Harry, welcome to the stream.
Yeah, hello. I'm just gonna say, hopefully you heard what I said 2 minutes ago, and before you say you didn't, don't worry, I didn't call any of you the F word or the B word or whatever. Don't worry. Besides that, hopefully it will be a great race, as I said. 21 drivers, as you said. I almost forgot to go off spectator mode, so you were probably going to end up seeing me like a racing balls at the start without me noticing.
Well, I am in the lobby. I'm not sure why I'm getting the call that I can join the lobby, because I am in it. Did I join? I'm in the right one.
I'm in the same one as you, so...
Yeah, I was a bit confused because I got an invite, even though I am most definitely in. Let's see, the drivers. We have 21 drivers in the lobby. The drivers that we'll be having tonight are Tom Roberts, which is our host. We'll be driving in Haas with Gabor Santos. For McLaren, we have Luca Ripasa and Jack West. For the new Audi team, for now, just see Joe Murphy, Red Bull, Angelo D'Ortenzio. In the Mercedes AMG F1 team, Francesco Lago and Zach Styler. For Aston Martin's Tony Atala and Liam Stevens. For Ferrari, it's Alan Beater and Simone Equestre. And then for Cadillac, we have Valentino Labella and Rishan Jacobs. For the Racing Bulls, for now I just see Andrei Tarabukin and Lucas Beisner in the Alpine. And if I scroll down a little bit further down the line so we can get the other names, that will be Adrian Andrasov in the Red Bull, Larry Tolke for Audi, the Williams pairing of Frank Ghiziorni and Tommaso Kenny, and Speedy finally in the Racing Bulls. So we should have everyone then.
I believe so. I just can't resist but not to point out how everyone else has their full name, then there's just Speedy out of nowhere.
Well, that is his Discord name as well, so we'll just be going off of that. As to answer your question in the chat, Melvin, I named it Social Race 3 because the third set of races, including the PS ones, but also because our other stream that started an hour ago was named Social Race 2, and I didn't want the names to overlap and cause any issues in that sense. Tom, I should be in, so everything should be alright. I currently see us all loading in, so I'll wait for us to fully load in, and then I'll be able to switch the overlays also to the race overlays. We'll get started with a qualifying session first here in Austria, Spielberg. What do you think of the track, Harry?
I mean, it's a really lovely circuit. It's going to be interesting to see how the battery deploy is going to be implemented, because you do have those 3 extremely long straights, turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3. I mean, turn 3 and 4, because turn 2 is just a little veer off to the left. It's nothing too major. It's going to be a nightmare for the drivers to manage, but that is what's going to be pivotal in this, and these guys probably have had enough prep already, sitting there not touching grass and just full on practicing to learn all the tyre models, all the harvesting strats. As qualifying is now underway, I believe it's a Ferrari first out on track.
Let's check. It looks to be a Ferrari indeed. As for Tom, I should be in the correct lobby. I joined Tom Roberts, so everything should be okay. I see Jack West going for a little spin. As they're going the wrong way. Not sure if they want to do qualifying session at all, but I think Simone was the first. No, his teammate was the first to leave, so it's Zalan Beater. Let's go over to him. Wondering how much of a qualifying session we'll actually have if some drivers decide that they want to start at the back of the grid. But I think for some drivers, track position will matter, and that means we will have a full qualifying session ahead with, instead of 21 drivers, now 17 going out. Harry?
Yeah, a lot of drivers just wanting to have fun with the social race. That's kind of the point of it. So they've instantly nominated themselves to start towards the back. It probably will end up being a competition over this session to see who can start at the lowest place possible rather than who wants to start up top. There could be a chance someone sets a lap, batters the field by 2 seconds, and then just chooses to disqualify themselves from the session. But Zalanbida is starting their lap up towards turn 1 in overtake mode and straight mode. Remember, that is the replacement of DRS. And they enter the second of 4 straight mode zones of the lap. Burns battery but leaves about half of it after the first sector. It's a 15.9. A really decent start thus far. Can the Ferrari continue the momentum as they gather speed going down the hill? The rear wing gaps again nice and wide open, giving them all that top speed, and straight down into third gear, shimmying their way on the exit, almost dropping it on the outside curve. However, continuing on to turn 6, sector 2 practically done here, and it's a representable 44.5. This is definitely looking like some strong pace coming from the Ferrari as they run with near enough nothing left in that battery pack, managing to harvest some through turns 9 and 10 to give them an elixir of life to the line. And it's a 1 minute 3.9 to kick off this session. Zach Styler up next. They did not settle up, it was invalidated, but Simone Equest goes to the top.
Yeah, fastest lap time set by the Ferrari pairing, a 103.8 and a 103.9 as we're currently on board with the Red Bull of Adrian Andrasov. It's a lovely sound hearing that for the first time as he's coming across the line. Was a little bit off in the second sector, and indeed will come home in fourth for now with a 104.7. Then I want to be scrolling through a little bit to see what the other drivers are doing. Lucas Beisner just finished sector 1, and Andrei Tarabukin set the fastest lap time so far, and it looks like Larry Tulke is just at the end of the second sector, now into sector 3. It's about a 10th up on Zalan Bieder's lap time from before.
Only 8 thousandths or whatever is separating the Racing Bulls and the Ferrari of Simona Quest in that top 2. But can Larry Tulke take the top spot? Yes, he will. 1 minute 3.8. That's the third time in that bracket so far this session, just showing how immensely compact this pecking order is. But for Lukasz Beznia, he is running round the final corner, using all the battery he has left over the line, unable to beat him, and I believe he invalidated final corner, so it is not a lap for the Alpine. Tom Roberts, however, up next in the Haas, working his way to the final 2 corners, straight mode in use. That's now gone, of course, for the braking zone and around the final corner. More battery than I've seen all session out of anyone else over the line, and it's slotting neatly into P2.
Yeah, very good final sector from Tom Roberts. Was slightly down in the middle sector, but managed to gain a bit on Larry Tulke. Only 12,000 separating the two so far. But we have 4 drivers into the 103.8. I'm expecting more drivers to get into that in the moments yet to come. We saw Lucas Beisner being able to match that, but he invalidated, sadly. Otherwise, he would have been in P3. Then the other driver still out there on track is Gabor Santos with a 15.8 in the first sector. We'll stay with him to see if he is going to go for a push lap or if he is going to abort, but looks like he's quite pushing it and going for a little slipstream on one of the Ferraris, I believe he just overtook. Might have been his teammate in a Haas instead. No, wait, that is the Audi of Joe Murphy. Of course, we have more red colors now. Way to go for making confusing it for us. But that is a great middle sector with a 44.442 as Gabor Santos is now making his way to the final 2 corners, Rindt and the Red Bull Mobile Curve. As he first goes through 9, then it's up, down through 10th, keeping it within track limits. Good lap from Gabor Santos, and it is enough for a fastest lap time so far. Gains another 10th in that final sector, and that's a 103.711 current fastest lap time.
Yeah, I'd like to say that was quite a scruffy final sector from Gabor. Probably lost a 10th or 2, especially in those final few corners. You know, you may have noticed a few minor corrections of that Haas car, but he managed to wrestle it through and put it to the top. Up next, though, is that second stage of qualifying where some drivers come back out just to give themselves an extra cushion in this session. That's Thomas Kokeni in the Williams entering the final 2 corners. Then you do have Zach Steiler and Adrian Andrasov in the Red Bull and Mercedes, both on an out lap with a Ferrari coming out now, but Tamas starting his run, trying to find a better lap than that 1 minute 4.1 he's currently got. That's only good enough for 9th. A very minute advantage over his teammates, but after the first sector, it is 39 thousandths improvement. A very good start to the lap. It's so difficult to find time, especially when you're at the top end of the league racing industry. However, continuing down towards turn 4, back dropping those gears to gear 3. I'm commentating.
Alright, let's take him through the second sector, almost at the end of the second sector now, also matching the lap time, almost identical to Gabor Santos, only 3 thousandths off through that middle sector. Great middle sector from Tomas Kokeni. We know him as a qualifying beast. Let's see if he can keep that up in the final sector. Just 1 corner to go. How close can he get to Gabor Santos on his second lap out? It is P3, losing a little bit of time in that final sector, about a 10th to Gabor Santos, just underlying underlining how fast that final sector from Gabor Santos was, despite it looking as scrappy as Harry mentioned. Then Simone Equester has just started a lap time. First sector is about half a tenth off. For Adrian Andrasov, he's currently about half a tenth up in the middle sector, but still 3/10 down on the fastest lap time that we have already seen. And for Zach Styler, he has just started his lap, but we'll stay with Simone and see if he can improve in that middle sector. He's got about 10 seconds left to go in that middle sector. First up through Rauch, turns 5 and 6. And then he'll be making his way through Worth 7 and 8. He is still down on his fastest lap time. He's not going for an improvement quite yet. And I wonder if he is going to abort this lap or if he is still going to see if he can find improvement in that final sector. No, he dives into pit lane, knows there's no improvement to be made, so he aborts. And that leaves Adrian, who is not going to start with one, and Zach, who is currently on a good lap. And that's a great second sector from Zach Styler.
Indeed. Sorry about that. My sister wanted to ask if I would go to a sports day in 2 weeks' time. But onto a different sport. It's Formula 1 and Zach Styler invalidating final corner. Unable to settle up. That lap, however, would have been enough for P2 in the Mercedes. He will be kicking himself right now for that very, very minuscule mistake round the final corner. Just pushed it too much on the inside. But for Liam Stevens, it's a 16.7 after the first sector, about 8/10 slower than the likes of Gabor, which we saw earlier this session. So there is definitely some time to work around. However, the Aston Martin going to give it all that he's got, snapping the car through turn 4, giving a little bit of a power slide as well. However, it seems a lot more stable going through turn 6 after the middle sector. Still a marginable distance behind the top dogs. However, just a lap on the board will be enough to consolidate his place in the top 12 of this session. Out of the final corner up to the start finish line for Liam, and it's P11 at 1 minute 5.8 as Zach Styler enters the pits as Lucas slowly working his way around the track as we are about to enter the end game of this qualifying session. 7 minutes left on the clock, quite a few cars out on track. They'll be in a few moments, only to come back out around the 3-minute mark, so do not go anywhere.
Now, don't go anywhere indeed, as we're just on board. Well, not on board. We're watching Larry Tokyo, who's up about half a tenth through that middle sector. Great lap so far. He's really pushing it. He wants to get that pole position away from Gabor Santos. Can he do so? He does get awfully close, but not close enough to overtake Gabor. And it looks like Gabor has invalidated, so he won't be going for any improvements. Andrei Tarabukin has gone for an improvement. He is now not on for a push lap. As for Tom Roberts, not pushing either. Zalan Beater seems to be pushing a bit more, as he did have his wing open, and will now be on board with him. He's not going for the fast upshifts though, so he is not pushing it either. Then next in line is Speedy. He's 2.8 seconds down rather, and he's now diving into pit lane. It's Frank Yaziorni not on. Liam Stevens not on for that one either. Then Lucas Beisner, he is on for a lap. That's a 44.4. That is quite on par with the drivers that have managed to set a 103.8. So Lucas might be able to slot himself within that top 7 if he can keep it clean between the white lines. He does do so. Now to the line, Lucas Beisner goes. That's P3. That is quite the improvement in the final sector as well, and he gets quite close to leader Gabor Santos, who still holds that provisional pole with 5.5 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, very close, to say the least. It's only 35 thousandths splitting that top 3. Then I'm pretty sure we did say something about 3 drivers in the 1 minute 3.8 around 10 minutes ago. Make that 5 if I can count correctly. Don't judge my maths, I haven't studied it in a few years, but I'm pretty sure that is 5 according to my very vague calculations, as everyone is working their way into the pits to get on a new set of tyres, get the fuel load sorted. Some drivers may have been running higher fuel to give them an extra few runs. This time, they'll all be dropping it to about 3 laps to go full ham at the end of this qualifying session, as Liam Stevens has retired, meaning it will be 12th at best for the Aston Martin, with the one driver behind him who can set a lap being Zach Styler in the Mercedes.
Yes, indeed. So just 12 drivers remaining in the qualifying session out of a 21. The other drivers either do not want to go for the improvement or don't want to go for a lap at all. But if I look at the names, we see most of the higher tier drivers. There are some F2s as well in it. So I think they want to give themselves a little bit of a challenge starting further down the grid. So they will be battling with others on top. But then again, we also have drivers like Larry Tolki and Gabor Xantos from the higher tiers that are participating in this qualifying session. And I think they're just taking it as seriously as possible and practicing their qualifying sessions before, of course, the main season is going to start in hopefully some weeks, if not a month time from now. Now, of course, we have a lot going on this week. We have, in a real world F1, the Barcelona Grand Prix coming up this weekend. We have the World Cup that has just started 18 minutes ago, but we're zoned in on this social race. The final runs are going to be starting, and the first man out on track is Andrei Tarabukin.
Yeah, Andrei out on track, as my phone that's monitoring the stream chat just keeps falling for some reason. I really need to get like a phone stand for it, because it is quite a bit frustrating. However, the track's starting to get busier. Quite a few names all popping out the pit lane now. 5 currently on track, with a Haas and an Alpine and even an Audi marching their way down the pit lane to kickstart the final 3 minutes of this qualifying session.
Yeah, most of our drivers are currently out on track. I see the Ferrari from Salon Bieder now about to leave pit lane. At least 2 more drivers still in. The likes of Adrian Andrasov and Franek Yaziorni, a Red Bull and a Williams with 2 minutes 25 left on the clock. I think they'll be leaving momentarily. But as I said, the first driver to set a lap will be Andrei Tarabukin. He's now going through turn 9, lining himself up nicely in that final corner, taking as much speed through it as he can, and here he goes, his final run. He is currently in P4, needs to improve by about a 10th if he wants to jump to that top step. And first up, first corner, a little drift over that curve, but he's keeping it nice and straight. And how fast is he going to be through that first sector? Needs to go for a slight improvement, and he is down 44 thousandths in that first sector. A big drift going into turn 3 of Remus, and he has aborted. Looks like he has decided, I can go for another one later. Let's do that.
Yep, Tamas also behind on a slow start to their lap. A name I've spotted though is Speedy, 51 thousandths up. That so far will still only put him in P9. However, 2 sectors left to run. Anything can happen in them. And also sector 1 is all about the top speed in which you can carry, whereas you can definitely work it a bit easier. What is a pain though is the overtake mode switching on and off, because if there's a yellow flag, it disables overtake. So for Speedy, he probably did lose a bit of time with that overtakes no longer being deployed for back markers yielding, and Speedy invalidates round the final corner, so it will be no lap in the end for the Racing Bulls. But Zach Styler did just set an identical lap to Larry Tulki, who is working their way into the final 2 corners now. The Audi in P2 with a Ferrari about to cross the line. That is Simone. He didn't set a lap, and Larry has invalidated their efforts. Gabor also on a slow run, as I don't think anyone's coming over the line to actually set a lap, more than anything to start a lap.
Yeah, that looks like to be the case indeed. Andre, in the meantime, has started his real flyer. He is a little bit up in that first sector, but we're looking at the key times in this middle sector. Needs to be up by about a tenth. He's up by a tenth and a half. That's a great middle sector from Andre Tarabukin. If he can keep this up, he will surely dive into the 103.6s and grab that pole position. Just 2 corners to go, and now a little bit slippery. Tries to take it a little bit easier through those final few corners, and across the line he goes. It is an improvement, but still P5 for him. How many more drivers are still out there? Larry Tulki is not going for one. Gabor Jontos has invalidated. Lucas Beisner has 2. Then I think that Tomasco Kenny's just come across the lines. Alan Beater is not up. Simone Questra is not down. It looks to be it. Looks like Gabor Jontos' his lap was enough after all. And a 103.711 is your pole position for tonight. And it goes to the man in Haas.
Yeah, 1 lap I'm pretty sure he set in all those 18 minutes. All the others were invalid. But that does show how 1 lap can dictate an entire session here at Austria. However, I did notice Salvatore supporting Simone in the Ferrari. P9 for him in this qualifying session. But something to note, he was only about a tenth and a half off of pole position here today, which is insane to think. Even in PSF2, we don't see it that close. We get maybe about 3 tenths into the top 9, just showing how elite some of these drivers are and how compact the competition you have for this evening.
Yeah, and that to mention as well that we have drivers from F2, 3 and 4, so that even adds to the fact that it comes as close as it does. But pole position for Gabor Jontos, like ahead of Larry Tolke, Zach Styler, Lucas Beisner, Andre Tarabukin, Tomasco Kenny P6, then it's Tom Roberts, Zalan Beater, Simone Questra, and Speedy in P10. After that's Franna Ghizioni, Adrian Andrasov, Liam Stevens, Joe Murphy, Angelo D'Ortenzio, Francesco Lago, Valentino Labella, Tony Itala, and the other drivers that did not partake in the qualifying session. Means that we're now going to load into the race. We'll be having a little bit of a pit lane view, and it looks like the skies are as bright as they could possibly be over the Austrian hills, so we won't have to worry at all about rain, so to see. But we have 21 drivers out there on the grid. Let us know in the chat who you supporting, who you think is going to win the race. Pole man, the pole sitter once more, is Gabor Jontos.
I don't think Gabor's gonna win, believe it or not. I just have that gut feeling saying pole's not going to convert it. I want to say it's going to be Andre in the Racing Bulls here tonight, but everyone's so impeccably close. It is near enough impossible to dictate that before the lights even go out.
Yeah, it won't be easy to guess at all. We know that Gabor Jontos has been quick overall. There's some back markers that are fast as well, but we have 5 red lights. And away we are for this social race here in Austria. And it looks like Gabor Jontos has been able to hang on to that pole position. We do have a yellow already for Sector 3. That, of course, doesn't make any sense. We'll get some information about the position change. And it looks like Tom Roberts has managed to get one. Joe Murphy has lost 2 in the back. Luca Ripasa is up by 1, fighting with his teammate Jack West. Now it's Andrei Andrasov, who's been caught up in a little bit of a squabble down in turn 3. A lot of drivers going side by side. Lago's up by 4. We have a yellow in sector 2. That is the Aston Martin of Tony Itala losing his front wing. 3-man wide diving into Schlossgold. The drivers are pulling everything out of their hat, and Jack West and Luca Ripasa are up 5 places already.
Crazy start. Yellow flags everywhere. I believe that yellow flag was just because you do have that 21st car on the grid. They start in that final sector, so just so long there's someone not moving off the start and therefore thrown out a yellow flag. But I believe there's Andrew versus Zalan, wheel to wheel around the final corner, still going at it up towards turn 1 as Gabor does start your second lap as the race leader. Everyone, however, is split by about 5 seconds apart from Tony, who is now limping his way down the pit lane, gets to 10 seconds for speeding, and that is his social race over on the first lap, with Larry Toolkey having to fend off against Zach Styler, who tried round the outside in turn 3, got so close to doing, but will use their overtake and the straight mode to again go to the outside for turn 4, try and beat the Goliath. Unfortunately, David did not succeed this time round, and the Mercedes is going to have to recuperate and try again, most likely next lap.
We will have to try next lap indeed. It looks like we've had a disconnect for Angelo D'Ortenzio in P20 in the Red Bull. Tony Itala has DNF'd, as you also mentioned. We had 4 drivers starting on the hards: Joe Murphy, Rishan Jacobs, Valentino Labella, and Angelo. And it looks like Joe Murphy is doing the best out of those in P15. But look at the likes of Francesco Lago and Luca Ripasa. They did not set a lap time in qualifying and already up to P12 and P13 respectively. So great sessions for them. In the meantime, Lucas Beisner is getting very close to the back of that Mercedes in the name of Zach Styler. Tommaso Kenny goes for a send down the inside on Zalan Peter. We have quite a few cars going side by side here indeed. Zalan Peter together with Tommaso Kenny still. Tomas has the inside line, has to use quite a bit of battery, and he will manage to outbrake the Ferrari, who still tries to stay around the outside but can't get the overtake done.
Yeah, right behind them though was Simone and Liam having contact. Liam went round to about 45 degrees towards the apex, and I do believe either him or Simone is sustaining some form of front wing damage, either that or side pod damage, because debris did go flying everywhere. However, they are still in that top 10, which does give you points in an event. Unfortunately, social races are pointless, so it's just for the sake of racing and giving these drivers something to do on a Thursday evening, and also giving us as the commentators something to do as well. But Liam going to the inside against Simon. A lap ago they had contact, inflicted damage against one another, but this time Liam's going to barge his way through and get ahead of the Ferrari, who now plummets immediately behind Francesco in the Mercedes, and maybe even behind Luca Ripasa, who's on the inside, keeping that nose tucked in and will get the run on the exit. The Ferrari has to hill 3 places in a matter of corners. It is such a shame for Simone that this is all going completely wrong for him here today.
Yeah, another rest lap for Simon as he's now down in P12. We're currently watching Tom Roberts, who is in P5, awfully close to the back of the Alpine of Lucas Beisner in P4. But we already see some names making their ways up the list, and most notably are Francesco Lago in P10 and Luca Ripasa, the two that we spoke of earlier on. So expect them to come further up the field and to fight for a potential race win later on. But we're still in lap 5 out of 36. Gabor Jantas has kept this lead all the way through. It looks like at least our top 5 has remained, the top 4 has remained unchanged. Tom Roberts has managed to get 2, but here we see it. Liam Stevens gained 4, Francesco Lago 6 places gained, and for Luca Ripasa starting all the way in P21, gained 10 places now in P11.
Your mic's just cut out for me.
Should be fine now.
Yeah, it should be fine now. Yeah, I can hear you again. But Lucas going towards P4. Well, P4. He is in P4. Going towards P3 as Myth, I think, is having some tech issues currently with the microphone. So just bear in mind with him while he gets that sorted. But Tom, right behind Lucas, whilst Rishan in the Cadillac, setting the fastest lap of the race on those hard compounded tyres. He's also starting to pick his way through the pecking order in this race. Larry also immensely close to the back end of Gabor Santos. Yes, I butchered that quite horrendously, and that is why I stick to the likes of T-Show and Kevin Zonneberg on the PS side of the series. Their name's so much easier to pronounced, especially with experience doing it. However, just trust me, I will get used to it throughout this event. Joe Murphy, however, in the Audi, right behind Simone Equest in the Ferrari. Could he lose another place? The Audi on the outside for turn 9, getting some overspeed, unfortunately having to back out and give the Ferrari that racing line. Otherwise, it could have ended up being a massive nightmare for them both here today as we enter lap 7. And I want to see if Myth has got that mic issue sorted, as Liam is working very nicely behind Zalan, looking to the inside and going for the lunge. Will be ahead.
Yes, my mic should be fixed and going for the lunge indeed. Liam Stevens has gotten the overtake done onto Zalan Peter. Or is currently checking what the hard runners are doing, because you mentioned Joe Murphy was currently in P12, the first of the hard runners, before being followed by Rishan Jacobs in 14th, Valentino Labella in 17th, and Angelo D'Ortenzio in P19, but he has a 2.3 second gap to overcome because of that disconnect early on. But we saw in the other social race that started an hour before us that right about lap 11, lap 12, the hard runners were starting to overtake the mediums, and that was also around the time that some of the early pit stoppers on the mediums came into pit lane. So still a few laps away from that, but do expect Joe Murphy to start picking up the pace and start to reel in some overtakes in the laps to come.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing quite early, I'd say. Because, of course, it's only lap 8, and there goes Joe Murphy against Francesco Largo to the outside for turn 3, and up into P11. He made that look effortless, to say the very least. An easy move, just use that straight mode, that battery as well. Of course, overtake as if you're within a second of the car ahead. After that blue marker between turn 9 and 10, if you can see it on that track map in your bottom right hand side of your screen. However, with the field so close, near enough, everyone is getting it as Jack West has spun that papaya McLaren and getting back underway. A massive snap and goes round, almost hitting Angelo, nearly taking the Red Bull out for a trip as well. And Jack has went, you know what? That's my event done here today.
I wonder what happened with that car, because we saw indeed that we had a yellow in sector 2, then he came back on track. We saw a huge snap oversteer moment. I'm not sure how Angelo managed to stay away from that McLaren, to not get hit by that, but he stayed clear of it, and he's now only 1.1 second behind Franek Yaziorni in P17, so it looks like he's starting to catch up with the drivers ahead of him, but there is a gap that has formed at P15 where Adrian Andrasov is now 2.9 seconds down on the first train. The first train from P1 all the way down to 14th, where we find Rishan Jacobs. We have some swapping of places happening around P8, and it's Simone Questos, Alan Beater actually, who's dropping quite a bit. Looks like there might have been some contact with Luca as he tried to overtake them. Joe Murphy in the meantime has slotted in nicely in P9 too, with Francesco Largo just behind in P10. But we haven't seen many changes up in the top 5. And Largo... What?
Yeah. Francesco just had a massive snap, went round and got clipped by, I believe that was Joe Murphy as he was charging through. But what happened, sorry to intrude, is I believe it was Tamas, wheel-to-wheel with Liam, then Luca tried having a pop, Tamas on the outside against Luca, ending up banging wheels. Tamas went round and picked up cars along the way, and it's just all kicked off all of a sudden.
It has just kicked off all of a sudden indeed. As we see now, the thing I was mentioning a couple laps ago, the hard runners are starting to come alive. It looks like they're doing so a little bit earlier than I was expecting, but Joe Murphy has gotten the overtake done onto Luca Ripasa, now in P8 and looking to gain yet another. His next target is Liam Stevens, but further up ahead, the gap behind P3 is getting very close. Lucas Beisner 2 10s down, Tom Roberts another 2 10s behind that, as we're now in lap 11 of 36. Beisner has to hold back a little bit on Zach Styler, but here we go then. Tomas has retired from the session, but Lucas Beisner, will this be the overtaking opportunity down into turn 3? He is still quite far behind, and it looks like he's holding off for now, so no trying to overtake, at least for now, as Adrian, Francesco, and also Kokeni, that I mentioned earlier, have retired from the session, making our total 5 retirees, just 16 drivers left in competition.
Yeah, Zalan and Rishan giving us a wonderful battle currently for P10. They've just been swapping and swaying between one another for the last half a lap or so. However, I do think the mission's been accomplished for Rishan Jacobs, who has finally got past in that Cadillac. And for the first time this race, we are seeing a Cadillac in the points playing positions. Will we get more out of it? He's 3.1 seconds behind Luca Rapassa in the McLaren, who is at the very tail end of the queue of cars that take you all the way up to your race leader of Larry Tulke. In today's race, we've just hit a third of the race distance, lap 12 of 36, and Gabor looking to the inside against the Audi. The Haas had a glimmer of hope, but unfortunately wasn't able to do anything with it, whilst the other Haas dueling away for P5. Tom versus Andre. Andre on the inside in that Racing Bulls as Speedy has made it 6th retirement here today. Racing Bulls of Andre gets the job done against Tom, but he's going to look at it into turn 6, kept the nose poised in, gave the bit of pressure needed as there's Joe Murphy lunging it against the Haas, and that is P6 for the Audi car now.
Yeah, it was a great overtake, a very risky overtake from Joe Murphy, but it works out perfectly fine as he's now managed to get P6. He's gaining about a place every lap now, and his next target will be P5's Andrei Tarabukin, as he's really on for a roll. Of course, he is the only hard runner in that top 9 that is in that same train, so he has a little bit of an advantage. How much will that advantage pay off? Into turn 3, down the inside he flies, and ahead he goes as well, still side by side, but looks like Andre already has to yield, and indeed Joe will be ahead. It's now P5 for him. Gabor Jantos in the meantime has retaken the race lead from Larry Tulke, but behind everything stays put until Joe comes knocking on their door.
Joe is just being relentless here today. Those hards on the Audi is a match to be afraid of. However, Luca Rapassa just getting moved done against Tom Roberts, who was only P5 at the start of lap 12, come the end of lap 13, and he's down at the back of that train, which is such a shame for the Haas, which also does prove how quickly things can change with this new era of Formula 1 cars and the new era of battery deploy in general. As you can see, Luca Rapassa tucked in right behind Liam Stevens, using a bit of overtake, trying to burn it up, looks to the inside against the Aston Martin, will make the send. Will he finalise it in turn 3, or will they have to continue down to turn 4? The answer is the latter of the options. Luca Rapassa and Liam Stevens still going wheel to wheel. Luca to the inside, giving a bit of argy-bargy against the Aston Martin, and promotes that McLaren up to P7, whilst Larry Tulke having to fend off Zach Styler, which I did catch in the corner of my eye, and Joe Murphy even putting pressure onto P4 of Lucas Bejna, as it is really all happening in the same part of the track. Not much happening elsewhere apart from this top 9 swapping around, with Luca Rapassa and Liam Stevens darting into the pits.
Yeah, first pit stops now. Zalan Peter joining them. And lap 15 has just started. We're a little bit later with our pit stops compared to the other social race that started an hour before us. But it looks like this is a more standard time to come into pit lane. Doing 22 laps, yes indeed, on the hards should be doable for them. As for Joe Murphy, he will be continuing on a little bit longer before he's going to to make that switch back to the mediums. I think we'll be seeing him out for at least another 5 laps before he'll have to catch up with the hard runners. But in the previous lap, he has not been able to overtake Lucas Beisner up ahead, so it looks like he is starting to get stuck as well, as we saw Andre go a little bit wide just behind him. But I wonder how fast the runners and the likes of Luca Ripasa and Liam Stevens are going for that undercut. Are the drivers going to respond at all to this? Gabor Jontos darts into pit lane, and it looks like the rest is indeed going to follow. Joe Murphy will stay out as we predicted. Tom Roberts has decided to do the same thing indeed. But Jontos, Tulki, Styler, Beisner and Tarabukin are in pit lane. Let's see where they come out in comparison to Luca Ripasa. Now going through the final corner, leading the charge just ahead of Liam Stevens. The pit stops are now done. They're about to leave pit lane. There they go. It will be very close, but I think Ripasa might have been able to undercut them. They have the extra speed coming out on track, and Luca Ripasa is your new race leader.
Yeah, Jontos did get speeding in the pit lane on entry just by about 1 mile an hour, which is a shame for the Haas driver. That's gave him 10 seconds that he will have to serve either in his next stop or after the race. Jontos immediately putting the pressure on his competitors as he sends it straight to the inside against Liam Stevens and effortlessly promotes himself up into P2 in provisional P7 as things stand. Tom Roberts also entering the pits, meaning everyone should now be running the hard compound tire in this race.
That is correct indeed. We saw 4 drivers yet to make a pit stop. That's Joe Murphy, Rishan Jacobs, Angelo D'Ortenzio and Valentino Labella. Luca Ripasa is now leading the race, but yeah, that 10-second time penalty to Gabor Jontos is going to at least eliminate all of his chances to get this race win here at tonight's social race. It's a shame, because after a great qualifying session and a good first stint, he was the driver to beat, and he would still be because he's provisionally still leading the race, although after penalty, that will go to Luca Ripasa. Currently checking, Tom Roberts came out in, well, current P12, that is, but he's down by 1.8 seconds of Andre Tarabukin, the man he was fighting with just before his pit stop. So he will need to catch up with them, because otherwise we will have a train leading from P6 to 11, and that will be 6 drivers that will be fighting for a race win, not of course counting Gabor Jontos, who is also in that train, but sadly won't be fighting for a race win tonight.
Yeah, Jontos has practically been the conductor of this train all race so long. He's just been untouchable at the front. The only man who's actually rivaled him is Larry Tulki, who's sitting 4th provisionally and 8th on track. He also did come out behind Luca Ripasa and Liam Stevens, and now they're all in this little train. It's almost as if the DRS trains have just been replaced with the straight mode trains.
Sounds like to be the case indeed, but then again, the drivers do not need to go for any overtakes just yet. We're now at the halfway mark, lap 18 of 36, and where you really want to start making some place gains is when you're entering the final 3 to 5 laps. That's when you want to position yourself so that you can get a potential race win, as we see Zach Styler go for a very unconventional move into turn 6. But he's managed to get the jump onto Larry Tulki, and he's now in P8. Great overtake from Zach.
Yeah, very valiant, as there is, I believe, Andre just going off the road there, being caught off by an attempt from Lucas. As Andre giving us a little bit of a wiggle on the main straight just to show his frustration. He wasn't particularly happy with that one. However, Larry versus Zach. The Audi using what he has got. He'll go to the inside, almost goes through a press with Zach and Liam, but Liam are able to just hold that place. Head unbraking, Larry giving a squeeze against Zach, not giving him any room to work with, forcing him the long way around, and that is P8 on track for Larry Tulki. back up to where he was, but the Mercedes, not giving up there, sends it immediately into turn 6, giving no room to the the Audi to run away with it. And now Lucas cruising straight on through against that Mercedes. Will we even see the Racing Bulls? Yes, we will, to the inside. And that's the Racing Bulls up to P10, but Zach's going to try and hold it to the inside. As if you didn't notice, Lucas also sent a lunge against Larry and succeeded, just like Andrew did. But for Andrew's sake, he had a bit more competition than he would have hoped. And Tom Roberts, now at the back of it all, ready to pounce in the near future if something else like that does unravel. But I have started to notice quite a few drivers are running out of battery towards turn 9. So do expect a few overtakes there, which isn't a typical place to go for a move here at Austria.
Yeah, but despite not being used to see that, we have already seen quite some unconventional moves into turn 6, into turn 7 as well. And just in the previous lap, Lucas Beisner the overtake onto Larry Tulke into turn 9, as we see Jontos and Ripasa lining up for an overtake potentially. But looks like one of the Hard Brothers wants to go into pit lane, goes for a huge spin, and that is Valentino Labella in the Cadillac, who's now gone into pit lane as well. Rushan Jacobs has gone for his pit stop. Angelo D'Ortenzio and Joe Murphy are still out there on track, and out of those, Joe Murphy is a driver that I would like to be watching the most, as he was so close to that top pairing that's currently fighting for the race win. Gabarjanto still leads that pack despite having a 10-second time penalty. Ripasa is behind, then it's Liam Stevens. Beisner has just made up a few places, but will feel the hot breath from that Audi of Larry Tulke behind him, as Zach Styler is trying to get back around the outside of Andrei Tarabukin, but Andrei pushing him outside nicely. He just goes off track, and that gives Tom Roberts the opportunity to overtake as he retakes that P9.
Yeah, a silly move from Andrei in terms of defense, just gave him a straight old push to the outside. Wasn't really trying to keep them both on the road, but by any means necessary is the saying, and it was taken straight to heart by the Racing Bulls driver as Angelo has pitted. We are just waiting for your race leader of Joe Murphy to do so, but it looks like he's going to come out about 8 seconds behind this train. It's about an 18 to 20 second pit stop, and currently leading by only 10 seconds, as there's Larry around the outside of Lucas, who I believe had a fairly big snap out of turn 3 and just allowed the Audi to capitalise on what he had with Zach Tyler, wheel to wheel with Zach Styler for the second time. I'm pretty sure I just said Zach Styler wheel to wheel with himself. You know who I meant. The Haas managing to hold on to P8 as Joe Murphy now enters the pits.
Yeah, Joe Murphy has gone for a little bit of a longer stint. 22 laps that he's done as we're now at the start of lap 23. But I think what he's trying to do is extend the stint a little bit longer so that he comes out right around the mark where Richard Jacobs is, so that they can go a little bit of DRS leapfrogging, as I would like to call it. So they can go for overtakes, switch back and forth, and then use that in order to get closer to the drivers up ahead. And indeed, he does come behind about a second behind Richard Jacobs, just ahead of Simone Quester, but he will like to stay ahead of that, and he does stay ahead, so indeed. So he will be behind Richard, but on 2 lap fresher mediums, that is going to help his charge, and the gap, as soon as it clears Alambeda, will only be less than 5 seconds before they catch up with the leading pack. So Richard and Joe have a very good chance here, Harry, we're still fighting for that race win.
Yeah, they do indeed. But one thing I noticed is Tom, he's probably the quickest man in that top 8. And he's on 1 lap fresher hards than 4 of them. Well, 5 of them. And 2 lap fresher than the other 2. So, you do get quite an advantage for having those fresher tyres. And for Rishan and Joe, they have fresher tyres, but Joe has the freshest of them all, of course, just putting them on. And hence why he is right on the back of Rishan Jacobs. Probably will be waiting to send a lunge, maybe into turn 4, if we are lucky. If not, go for an unorthodox move, which we, as you have prior said, seen many of today in the likes of turn 6. No move into turn 4, but do know it is definitely brewing, and the inevitable is yet to come.
Yeah, I think for now Joe is trying to keep it nice and tight, saving a little bit more battery that he can use later on in his fight with the man up ahead, because when we crossed start finish line just a moment ago, the previous lap, the gap was about 4.3, 4.4, and they've managed to cut down about half a second from that, a little bit more even, as they will be crossing the line at 3.6 seconds behind. So they're getting very close already. I think Joe is going to line himself up for an overtake now, so he can start leading that charge, and then we'll see his full pace unleashed as soon as he clears the Cadillac of Rishan Jacobs. He will go down the inside, will be ahead already. The gap now 3.3 seconds, 3.21 even, 0, that's going down quickly, under 3 seconds now, as Tom Roberts will be his next target in P8. As further up ahead, Luca Ripasa is still ahead of Liam Stevens. Now Larry Tolke in P4, as he did manage to get ahead of Lucas Beisner, now down in 5th.
Exactly, Joe Murphy, he's just blitzing it. He's gained about a second this lap, which is pace I did not think he had in himself. However, one similarity I want to try and draw is this to NASCAR. And no, NASCAR and Formula 1 are complete opposites. But in NASCAR, the smaller your group, the quicker you go, because you can just easily trade places. And that is proving exactly true here today. Joe Murphy and Rishan working together in P9 and 10 to catch up with this group, as Tom has gone deep and Zach straight up into P7. Pretty much had the door swung wide open for him with the mistake from the Haas driver, as Angelo making a move on Zalambida, who is now down to P12 in this race. The Ferraris had both cars starting in the top 10. Now both of them are running in the bottom 4 of those who are still racing. Whereas for the likes of Cadillac, they have both cars at the back. And to say the least, they are still both relatively running quite low out of the 15 still running.
Zach has gone into pit lane. He's got speeding into pit lane as well, as now retired from the session. Quite an unexpected pit stop, but I think there was damage in the overtake attempt by Tom Roberts that has caused him to make an extra pit stop. Tom Roberts now picking up 3 seconds for track limits. But what I wanted to talk about is Joe Murphy, because he has managed to cut down the gap that was 2.3 seconds a lap before down to 0, because he's already ahead of Tom Roberts. Now the gap to Andrei Tarabukin's 1.4, and he's catching up quickly. I think he will be behind the Racing Bull as soon as the next lap. So the drivers up ahead will have to decide, how are we going to hold off Joe and also Rishan as they are going to make their charges, because of course later on in the race the tire offset won't matter that much, but at the moment 11 and 12 lap old hards are of course no match for 4 lap old mediums, and they're going to feel that pain coming down now, because look at that, the gap's now down to 7/10 as Tom Roberts has also gone into pit lane. Assume he retires, he does retire indeed. That means that we have 13 drivers left, and Joe Murphy is on the charge.
Joe Murphy is flying. Honestly, he's already within about 6/10 of that train. And I'm pretty sure it was only like 3 laps ago he got set free from Rishan. And it's just been an absolute mission and a half from both the Audi and the Cadillac as they are sitting at the back quite patiently for now. However, as the laps do burn down, the closer we get to the end, the more impatient they will start to get, the more urgent their overtakes will appear. However, Lucas starting to set something up against Solari. I could see a wider line being taken through turn 7, a tighter line in turn 6. Definitely trying to see where that Audi is weaker to try and put him off guard.
Yeah, Joe's now gone within 4/10s. We saw him hold off a little bit on the main straight in the previous lap, but I think now he'll be trying to push a little bit more. He's now within 3/10s. We'll go on board with the Audi man, but it looks like the gap is just a little bit too much for him to make a send, and indeed does decide to brake quite early to try and get a better run. Takes a much later braking line, much different line than Andre up ahead, and for now we'll stay behind. I'm quickly going to flick over to P3 because Liam Stevens was trying to make a move onto Luca Ripasa for P2. Provisional race lead, of course, with Gabor Shontas having a 10-second time penalty for speeding in pit lane. And Joe Murphy still stuck behind Andre Tarabukin, but that's great news for the drivers up ahead because Joe is their real enemy at this point, you could say, the real opponent, because he is going so much faster on those mediums. In the meantime, actually, Angelo D'Ortenzio, even though he had a disconnect very early on in the race, he's now only 1.9 seconds down on Rishan Jacobs, that other set, well, the main train. So maybe Angelo can still bring it back. That would be incredible.
He has done amazing with what he's been given to. Of course, as you said, that misfortune at the start, but now Andre about to be put under some misfortune as Joe goes to the inside. A lock up from the Racing Bulls, they hit, and Rishan just follows straight up through, as it is definitely evident that Joe Murphy and Rishan Jacobs are the drivers to watch here in this kerfuffle, but the Racing Bulls not giving it up easily. Did try and go for a move again into turn 4. However, one thing I've just noticed is the top 9's 4 seconds apart and the top 7 being 2.5 seconds. It is insanely close here today, and we've still got 7 laps to go. So for 30 laps, hardly any room's been made across this field. It's impeccable.
It is impeccable indeed, but another thing that stands out now was that move the previous lap from Joe Murphy's. Lost a front wing end plate as a result of that dive. He did hit one of the drivers further up ahead, although he did manage to get the overtake, the jump onto Andre, who's now down into P8. For Rishan, this is great news because he does not have to worry about any damage, and for the drivers, the 5 drivers ahead of Joe, will also be good news that his push will be slowed down a little bit more. So it gives a little bit of breathing room for the likes of Luca Ripasa and Liam Stevens, but also for Larry Tulke and Lucas Beisner. Lucas, who now has to try and keep that Audi of Joe behind, already being behind an Audi himself in that Audi sandwich currently with the Alpine, but it's not going to be easy to hold off Joe despite him having a front wing end plate missing.
Indeed, sorry, I don't know why, but I'm just so tired. I just keep yawning for some reason. It's not like me. It's not like this race is boring or anything, but I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep and a few energy drinks. So that gives it all here today. But Larry making it 4 cars in a second as Liam Stevens on the inside against Luca Rapassa. He knows it's about time to try and make a move for the win as Luca Rapassa putting the Aston Martin into the grass and then immediately swerving across the fend off against the Audi. And again, another move. 3 wide becomes 1 wide as Larry and Liam just cut off the McLaren. As I'll be honest, the McLaren is driving like a madman to try and fend off his places. I know it was for what was going to be the race win, and now it looks like it's going to be an Audi because Joe Murphy, P5, P4, if you count Gabriel's penalty, and his teammate currently leading this race with Liam Stevens tucked in behind.
Yeah, and that is some massive damage for Lucas Beisner. Not missing a front wing and plate only, he's also missing half a front wing. Didn't know you could miss half a front wing, but looks like in F126 you can, with Andrei Tarabukin trying to go down the inside. But yeah, for Beisner, his race is over. That was some heavy defending from Luca Ripasa, way too heavy if you ask me, and that has at least made sure for Liam Stevens that he's gone ahead. Larry Toki now finds himself in P2, provisional race lead as well, but a lot of heavy defending going on here, and I think the stewards could say something about that. Then again, it is a social race, so I think Luca also knows there won't be any real repercussions, at least not as much as there would be within a season race, but this is not the driving standards that we would like to see. Definitely blocking the likes of Lucas Beisner there in the previous lap.
I've only just noticed this the last few laps, but is it just me or are the rear wings not opening and closing? Like, a few drivers are using the straight mode, whereas others, they're just leaving it to raw pace. So maybe it's a visual bug. Maybe it's a visual bug and they are all using straight mode, because I'm sorry, you're not using it, you're delirious. Because that's going to be such a hindrance in overtaking. Talking about overtaking, Liam Stevens making a move against Larry Toki. For Larry, he didn't fight it as if he was going to lose it. And now again, running towards the first corner. I'm actually opening telemetry now to see if I can find out whether or not straight mode's being used by these drivers.
That would indeed be very good to know. The only logical explanation I can currently think of is that the drivers want to stay in the place that they currently are at, because we're now entering the final 2 laps where an open wing might be more important to have, making use of that system. But I'm not entirely sure what's happening. Maybe you've seen it in the telemetry already now, Harry. Oh, that's a big spin from Andrei Tarabukin, and he's out of the race. That is no points for him, and that promotes Simone Equestre into the points. Both Ferraris now in the points, P9 and P10. But that is a very unfortunate ending for Andrei Tarabukin in what was a pretty decent social race.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent social race. About the telemetry, I think it's also got a visual bug on, because I'm looking at my dash and it says telemetry's disabled, but I've got the telemetry on because I turned it on. Now it won't turn off, and it's not even showing any form of straight mode in general being accessible, but it's showing that overtakes mode is accessible. So I've got no Scooby whether or not it's a visual bug. What I know for sure is the DLC does have some fixes still to come their way, especially on the visual point of view. But 1 lap to go. Will it be Liam Stevens? Will it be Larry Toki? Will it even be the likes of Luca Rapassa here? But is it possible for the McLaren to make up 2 places in a lap? We're about to find out here as a Liam Stevens tucked in behind Gabel, who has an Audi right up his rear end. Yellow flags being waved, and that is for Williams going slow, but Larry looking around the outside, trying to tuck in on the exit, look for a possible switchback, and now darting it down the hill, getting so close as Simone Equestre has retired. There's no move made there.
No move made indeed, and Larry Toki still behind Liam Stevens. Gavarjantos will go and challenge, but they don't need to challenge him. He's got that penalty to his name. That's heartbreak for Gavarjantos, who has driven an absolute perfect race, bar that pit entry. But now behind him, Liam Stevens and Larry Toki fighting for that race win. They want to go side by side. Defending from Liam Stevens is quite late, but he keeps Larry Toki behind. And that means Liam Stevens will be winning this social race here in Austria, just a 10th ahead of Larry Toki. And the final podium place going to Luca Ripasa ahead of Joe Murphy, Rishan Jacobs, Angelo D'Ortenzio, who came back from a disconnect, still in P6. Great effort from him. And Beisner in P7 will not be happy with that contact earlier on. A great race for Larry Toki, but a race win does not go to him. That race win is for the Aston Martin.
Yeah, amazing race. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, one of the best races I've watched in my 2 years of commentary. But Liam Stevens does take your race win, followed by Larry Toolkey, Luca Rapassa in third. If stewards were in play here, it would probably be a bit lower for some of the conduct in attempt to fend off the place. Fourth place goes to Joe Murphy, though. That's 2 Audis in the top 4. Rishan Jacobs finishes 5th, with Angelo D'Ortenzio in 6th. Lucas Bezna in 7th. Gabor 8th due to that 10 seconds. Zalambida in 9th. He's the last of the finishers. Everyone else did retire. Those names: Simone Quest, Franek Gezioni, Valentino Labella, Andre, Tom, Zach Styler, Speedy, Adrian, Francesco, Tamas, Jack West, and Tony Hitela. As I butchered about 9 of them, but hey ho.
Well, that is absolutely okay. We've seen quite the race indeed. We've had quite some questionable moments of some very hard racing, but also some racing that slightly went over the line. Then again, this is something that you can expect during the social races, things that you will see much less in the real seasons, of course. But I think all the way throughout, we've had quite a close race. A couple of drivers trying to last the first challenge, and Luca Rapassa getting very close to that, starting in P21 and picking up a podium. Let's see, Jack West managed that. He said that he spun on his own lap 8. He's still not too happy with everything that's going on. Francesco Lago, well, he also retired from the race. We had a lot of retirees. Out of 21, only 9 finishing, Harry. That's also not an amount that you see very often. But I think all the way through, the drivers did keep it very close to one another, and we had a lot of action out there on track.
We indeed had a lot of action. I mean, anywhere you looked, there was someone trying to send a move. Whether or not that was Lucas on his own, whether that was Jacob trying to work his way through the field, it was just relentless all race long. One thing I did notice, though, is Rishan ended up saying that was a Duracell simulator. I see what he means by that. As like, it was whoever had the most battery was going to win it. As I can see your smile as I say that. But all in all, a brilliant race here today in Austria.
Yeah, and I think that is just a showing of what is all to come in the upcoming seasons here at PSGL, with now the DLC of F1 25 being F1 26, and yeah, playing with the new systems and mastering that the best is going to be the key into getting titles and getting better placements throughout F1s, through I think all the way down to F8 or even F9 up to F4, maybe even F5 is likely to be streamed. At least that's how it's been in previous seasons, and hopefully you will find myself back on the PC side. And Harry, I think we'll be seeing you more on the PlayStation side, is that correct?
Yes, you will most likely find me on PS for about half the season, going away on holiday for half of it, all the way to the opposite side of the globe, so you'll see me for a fair chunk of the season. The other half, you will have a backup. And I can't lie, after that, I may try and pull some strings to do some PC commentary.
PC's always been good, and it will keep getting better in the F1 26 game with the new seasons to come. This at least was the social race for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We'll see you again for our next social event, or perhaps even the new season. Until then.
Goodbye.